So hi everybody. Today we're discussing about studying or working as an SLP in Canada. And we have 5 different SLPs with us today. And everybody is from India and in Canada right now working or studying. So let's all start off with the introduction. First we have Aruna. So Aruna, you can tell us about yourself, where you study, what are you doing currently? You can start.
Sure. So, like Mansa introduced, I'm Aruna. I studied in Bangalore. I did my bachelor's and master's at Dr. Chandrasekhar Institute of Speech and Hearing and moved to Canada for my PhD, but now working in Vancouver.
Okay, awesome. So I didn't know, but she's my super senior. Not super, but yeah, senior in the same
Well, you
college.
can say super senior, yeah.
Yeah, super senior then. Okay, so then
Yeah.
let's go to Abhinaya. Abhinaya, can you just give us an introduction about yourself?
Hi, I'm Abhinaya, and did my bachelor's and master's in speech language pathology from Sri Ramchandra Institute of Higher Education, Chennai, India. I am very new to Canada. I landed here a month back, so I'm a very fresh person in Canada, and I came here with my PR, the type of visa. Yeah, I've joined work. That's there. Yeah, I'm currently working at a private clinic in
Oh,
Ontario.
okay, all right. Okay, so please.
Hi, I'm Preet. I'm also new to Canada. It's been a little over a year. I'm working in a private pediatric setup in Vancouver, and I completed my bachelor's in Mumbai in Iyer Hospital and my master's in Manipal University. And I worked in India for a few years, and then I moved here.
Okay. And I think most of us, I mean, I know Preet because of Unclip. She runs a website where she holds training programs for SLP audiologists in India. I just wanted to mention that. Okay. Next, Sheba, can you tell us about yourself?
Hi, my name is Sheba, and I did my bachelor's and master's in Manipal, University Manipal, and then I worked for almost 6 years in Bangalore as a pediatric SLP. I took that passion, came to Canada, and I'm still working here. Now, I mean, I was working in a private setup for all like 6, 7 years. Then now, recently, like within the last 6 months, now I've started working as a school SLP as well.
Oh, okay. Great. All right. Aditi.
Okay, I feel like everybody else is way too more experienced than me. I just freshly graduated in 2022 from SRM. I did my BA SLP SRM Chennai, and then I worked for a year in Gujarat. I worked in a pediatric setup as a pediatric speech language pathologist, and I also was running my independent home visit services for people who are having aphasia or motor speech disorders post-stroke. And I then moved here to do my master's. I just moved last September. So I'm currently studying in Western University in Ontario.
Okay, all right. It's good to have a student on board because I did not find anybody who's a student studying SLP in Canada. So I'm really glad to have you here as well.
Yeah. Tell me about it. I didn't find anybody too when I was trying to move here.
Correct. I think finding somebody who's doing masters there in Canada from India is really hard. So I'm really glad I found you. All right. So let's start off with the questions. So the first part of the discussion will focus on work-related aspects, and then we'll move on to the financials and the study-related aspects. So the first question which everybody asks me is that what is the minimum qualifications you need to work in Canada? So the basic thing is that can you work in Canada after a BSc in India or an MSc in India, or what is the qualification? Maybe we can ask Preet to answer this.
Yeah, sure. I think they do require, if you have masters, it's definitely much easier because all you have to then go through is your documentation for the licensing, because you just have to submit your transcripts from bachelor's and master's. The best part is they do accept your master's degree. I had an MA SLP and they did accept that. So you can even choose either audio or speech. You can come here and decide based on your hours. Of course, if you have complete set of hours that they require in both audio and speech, you can apply for anyone because they do accept it. And then you have to go through all of the way it's all there in each state, the licensing requirements. and you just have to go through those, but they do accept a master's, which is a good thing.
Masters. Okay. And do you need work experience after that? Like, is it mandatory?
It's not mandatory, but I think for your licensing, if you want to get registered, like I'm a pediatric setup, so there's another license called Registered for Autism Service Providers. For that, if you have WorkX, it's easier to get a full license versus
Okay.
if you want, basically that is only if you're working with a pediatric setup or some kind of a caseload. There are sometimes some licenses you require apart from the state license. Only for that, I think it would be important if maybe since Aruna is the one who's here since many years, maybe if she wants to add something more about experience.
Sure. It's not tough to get on to the RASP, like Preet said, but I think RASP is limited to the province of British Columbia. I'm pretty sure every province has its own set of rules and regulations. So what you'll have to do first is decide where you'd likely want to immigrate. Look up the college rules. I know Ontario has by far the most strict conditions to get a license, and BC is by far the most lax province to get its license. Yeah, so figure out where you want to immigrate, look up the college rules and regulations, but masters across Canada, masters is a minimum requirement.
Okay. All right. Anybody else wants to add to that? Abhinaya or Sheba?
Although master's is a minimum requirement, like you can still get your license with a bachelor's degree, but that's like a clause in the CSHBC's in their entire their document. So basically, if you have like almost 8 to 9 years of experience in the field that you're trying, because I personally know somebody that I'm working with, my colleague, who has only her bachelor's, but then she was able to submit the documents saying that. So basically what they're trying to do is they're trying to understand that the knowledge, like, what you're getting from masters, you're having that almost equivalent to that because of your work experience. So they're basically taking that into account and trying to do that. But even then, you still have to get your coursework and everything. Your documentation has to be perfect, but this is something that like they're kind of ready to be lenient. I guess it's 1 or 2 that I've heard so far, but yeah, you can maybe try your luck is what I can say.
All right. So it differs in each province, is it? Like you where would anybody find this information?
So basically, that's one of the best things about Canada, I would say, because all the information is transparent. It's basically at your fingertips. You just need to know which word to type on Google and you'll get the information. So all of this of British Columbia, you'll get it from the College of Speech and Hearing, BC. And it's the same for all the other regulatory bodies provinces of Canada. You can go to that particular site, you'll get all of that you want. Second thing is, once you read those things, it's really confusing. But if you do have a question or query, if you do directly email them or even call them, they're very helpful. So I felt that personally.
Okay.
Honestly, if you don't even know the name of the college, because in BC it's called CSHBC, which is what Sheba said, College of Speech and Hearing BC. In Ontario, it's called College of Audiology, Speech Language Pathology of Ontario, CASLPO. Now we all know these names because now we've been using this continuously. If you don't know the name, you just type College Speech and Hearing on Google and your province that you're looking at. If you're moving to Ontario, you're moving to British Columbia, you're moving to Alberta, whatever state you're moving to. Once you just Google that, you'll find all the information, and then everything for international applicants is very easily available on their website and very clear-cut given.
Okay, this is about work only, right? Because you keep using the word college. So were you talking about work or?
Yeah, that's what I wanted to mention, because in India, you would usually use college for like university.
Yeah.
So that's not the same thing. College here is basically the regulatory body, which makes the set of rules and regulations for practice for audiologists and speech language pathologists. So when we talk about CASLPO as a college, or for British Columbia, a different one, these are all regulatory bodies for that province that makes the rules and guidelines for practice for audiologists and speech language pathologists.
Okay.
And yeah, so it's different from universities.
Okay. I was a little confused. Okay. So if somebody wants to check their minimum requirements, if they're eligible or whatever it is, they can think about the province, Google it, and they would find most of the information available. Okay. Anything else to add for this question, or shall we move on?
Also, it is a little different. I don't know if it is the same thing in British Columbia, but in Ontario, if you are practicing even with a master's degree, you need to give the Canadian entry to practice licensing exam. And if you
Okay.
do not clear that exam, there is a position called communication disorder assistant. So you can then not practice as an SLP. You will be practicing as a CDA, as a communication disorder assistant, until you clear your Canadian entry to practice CETP entrance exam for the
Okay.
license.
So this is something which is even for international applicants. Like even if I've done my master's in India and I'm applying there, I still have to clear the exam. And this is in every
Yes.
province?
Yes.
In BC, it's called like conditional license. You get like a conditional license because you've not completed all the requirements. So until you get your praxis or whichever is the exam that you're going to write, you're going to get a conditional license. That is different from SLP assistant, but it's like you're not fully registered yet. So
Okay.
that's what it is called in BC.
All right. So it's like an equivalent to praxis exam, whatever this exam is.
You can even
And
give praxis some of this
oh, okay,
license.
okay.
It's either praxis or it's either CETP, what she said, Aditi said. So yeah,
Okay.
you can give either. You just have to go through the requirements and see which one, but you have to give one exam to get your license.
Have all of
If
you
I can add
given
something.
yeah.
Yeah, I can. So I gave my CETP in October of
Okay.
23, and then I cleared it, and that's why I was able to practice. I was able to join practice as a full-time SLP. So the two certificates in Ontario is initial, like Sheba mentioned, a conditional certificate. So in Ontario, it's initial certificate and general certificate. So
Okay.
if I completed my master's and I cleared, there are two levels with Ontario. So if I completed my eligibility with CASLPO, and only if my exam is remaining, then I can start off as an initial registrant with with mentorship, but I'm still an SLP with mentorship, under mentorship. So I can practice like that for 6 months. And
Okay.
within that 6 months time window, I should be completing my CETP, passing it, so that
Okay.
I can become a general registrant. And at the end of the 6 months, I become a full-fledged SLP, like a general certificate SLP.
Oh,
But if you have, this is for an SLP who can't show work experience from home. So I showed, you have to show a year of work experience or 750 hours within that year, the previous year that you worked in your other country. So if you're able to show that 750 hours, you can register for general certificate. If you're not able to show that experience, then you'll become an initial certificate holder. It's a little tricky.
okay,
Like
okay.
Ontario is a bit yeah, it's a bit strict with its whole process. It's a little bit more
Okay.
expensive than any other province, from what I'm hearing.
Okay, okay.
It is. I think Ontario is by far one of the most strictest province in terms of getting your license. You don't need a minimum hour requirement to get a license to work in BC, but you need your master's degree for that. So if you have a master's degree, have no work experience, and if you meet the criteria to get your conditional active license, you can continue working as an SLP, but under supervision of a fully registered SLP. Pass your exam, and then even without work experience, well, I guess you would have as a conditional by then, you'll get your full license to practice. So I think Ontario, Alberta, there are a couple of provinces that need a minimum set hours, but BC doesn't, not yet, at least.
Okay, okay. Oh, that's interesting because it's like a whole process, right? You can find all of this and you have an exam, you have the licensing. So would you have something like CCC, SLP, what they have in the US? There's some term or something like that?
Yes, in BC, you're called registered SLP or RSLP. You can also, I guess, if you wanted to pay and become a member of a Canada-wide organization, which is the SAC, you'd get a certified degree or clinically certified with a C in the bracket.
Okay.
So you
But
can
you
be
don't
an
need that.
SLP.
Okay.
You don't need that to practice. What's important to practice is your province license. Without your provincial license, you can't practice.
Okay. Yes. Anybody wants to add to this?
One more thing. So basically, we're talking about how different provinces have like different requirements. One of the other things that is there is basically if you want to change from one province to another province, you can actually you can apply to. So basically, if I want to move from BC to Alberta, and Alberta has a different set, right? So I don't have to go through the process all over again. I can basically just shift my license to there. So that is an eligibility
Yes.
criteria. really good that, since I'm on PR, so I can do that. Like when it comes to, if you're on work permit or things like that, definitely all the practical difficulties are different, but yeah, this is something you can do.
We also have 750 hours because I was just thinking about whether I had given or not, and I had given it too. So we also have in BC a requirement now to give because that's what I had provided them for the last 3 years, whatever hours I had. So I think it's maybe it's getting stricter here too.
Perhaps I didn't have
Yeah, even I was like,
a
did I give
minimum
that?
work hour because I had no work experience at all. I graduated up until I finished my PhD. I just kept studying. And in about a month, I was able to get my college license to practice. But I did have to do my, which one did I do? Some Canadian exam. It's not the CETP now. It was something
Praxis?
else.
Because I gave my praxis
Something
in
that the SAC gave. Back in the day, SAC used to provide a
Okay.
test for Canada-wide, like provincial things.
Okay.
That's one of the tests I did.
Okay.
After
Yeah.
that, I
Yeah.
think Preet
There
did
you
mention
go.
that praxis. Sorry. Yeah.
Go on.
Yeah, Preet did mention that praxis can be useful, but I think in Ontario, it's only CTP. I don't think praxis will help you with eligibility. I think because I was checking because praxis is cheaper. CTP is really expensive, and I thought I'll take the cheaper option, but I couldn't because I was applying for Ontario. But
Okay.
I can go back and check, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And if you're
heads up.
deciding which one to take the praxis. You have a lot more study material if you're worried about what the exam looks like, what type of questions you're asked. They're all multiple choice. Take the praxis only because you have better study material. Typically, the Canadian entrance tests are a lot more challenging than the praxis. At least the one that I did through the SAC was a lot more challenging. And not that you flunk, about 90% of the people pass. But it's easier with the praxis, is what I've heard, although I haven't looked at the praxis.
Okay.
And we had no study material.
Mhm.
You have some study material with praxis.
Okay. Anybody else? Aditi, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I was saying that Abhinaya, what you were saying is right, that we only have CTP in Ontario and it is expensive, but Ontario in general is expensive for like everything. So that's
Okay.
there. But
Okay.
we do have like a lot of study material now accessible. I don't know if it was back in the day, but now there is a lot of study material for CETP. And in the past year, the passing rate has reduced quite a bit. So it's like a 50-50, 50% people pass and 50% people fail. So it's pretty bad. And
It's hard.
also you can only, and you can only give your CETP thrice. So that's another information. Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else? Can you tell me about the exams? Yeah, sorry, Abhinaya.
So like Aditi said, the reading materials, I think because she is studying here, she is able to access some. But because I was preparing from India, it was really bad. I kind of network with a lot of people and try to reach out through Facebook and LinkedIn and ask if there were resources. Definitely a lot of helpful people. So I did get some curriculum, UFT's curriculum, which I kind of based things on. But I prepared completely with the MSc draft from my college, all the 2 years. Plus, because I graduated only in 2021, 22, that was pretty recent. So I added a bit more of the year's research that I could get my hands on more. I just read up more evidence and I gave the exam. And the CETP, I don't know what they, when I think CastlePo conducted some webinars just to get you prepped, but they were also all over the place about resources. I don't think they were able to recommend anything rigid. But they did mention that reading praxis material won't really be helpful indirectly. So yeah, so I didn't go back to praxis because I also didn't have the time. But that was it for me from India. I couldn't get any CTP resources from Canada, honestly.
Okay. And so we have one question. So the exam you have to write it even if you study in Canada. Everybody who has to write the exam to practice in Canada. Okay.
Yeah.
And how was
in Ontario?
Okay.
Yeah,
in
I think
BC
it
as
varies
well.
with province.
In everything.
BC
It's called an entry to practice examination.
Okay.
So I think you have to give it in any state. Like I was just reading the regulatory body in BC accepts all three praxis, CETP, and the one that Aruna said, the
Okay.
SAC, which
Okay.
is the National Association of Canada, the same way ASHA is in US and the same way ISHA is in India. So
Okay.
they have another exam that they could give.
Okay. Preet, you wanted to add anything else?
No, I think that's it. So maybe every state-wise, they just have to
Mhm.
see which exam is easier. And like Aruna
Okay.
said, that if praxis is an easier one, just go for that option
Mhm.
if it's cheaper and easier.
Yeah.
But if you don't have the option, then look
Yeah.
out for
So
what's
was it really hard, Preet, whatever you wrote, Preet and Abhinaya and Sheba also? Just tell me a little bit about the exam.
Praxis. Actually, I knew that I had to do it because so basically I came on PR here. So
Okay.
before, while I was applying, and I knew that I'm almost getting the visa. That's when I started the whole process. So basically, you have like almost 10 to 11 requirements. So
Mhm.
apart from the exam, apart from the curriculum, apart from submitting all of this, I had to even get my PR card in hand. So that took a
Okay.
lot of time for me once I came here. It took me almost 5 months after I came. So in that time is when I actually prepared for praxis and I wrote it. So I didn't have to go to getting a conditional license. I got my full registration. I mean, my full license immediately. Even I was really scared about how this is going to be. I have a couple of, I mean, it might be an easy exam, but I don't know. It just depends from people to people, right? How it is. I know a lot of people who have had like 2 or 3 tries and they were not able to get in and stuff like that. And a lot of people, like you were asking, people who study in BC or any of the province for that matter, right after they finish their masters, they would go for this exam. So everything is basically fresh in your mind
Okay.
and, you can do that. And I hadn't done like any actual exam for like quite a bit of time. So I was thinking, what's it going to be like? But it was not so bad. So I had I bought the praxis book, which is like it's really huge. So I didn't think I would finish it, but I thought I'll just give it my try because once you're a condition, so once before you get your conditional license, you have like n number of trials to do praxis. Once you get your
Okay.
conditional license, then you have only 3 trials. You have to
Okay.
pass your third trial for praxis, or like your license, you'll have to restart the entire thing. I guess it has like a cooling period of 1 to 2 years. So only after
Okay.
that you can start to apply again. So I thought, okay, I didn't get my conditional too. So let me just give it a shot. If I go, I can try again. That's it. But it wasn't so bad. I sat and I made notes, I made drawings, everything, like went back to all the basics, which I had almost forgotten because I'm only working as a pediatric SLP. So that's the,
Oh.
dates, and that's what I'm looking into. So when it came to neuro, I was like, I don't even remember these things. But yeah, but it wasn't so bad. Within a
Okay.
month, I gave my exam and I cleared. So that was
Oh.
a big deal for me. Thank God. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. Abhinaya, because you're preparing from India, right?
Yeah, it took a whole month for me, an entire month to really prepare. Uh, like Sheba said, I was 1 year into practice, but I wasn't doing anything adult neuro. I was all about
Okay.
pediatrics. So, but yes, I was just 1 year old from my master's program. So I was still I still had something fresh in my mind. So I could study, but it took me a whole month and a lot of
Okay.
efforts, definitely. Like I said, I just went through every master's draft that I had,
Okay.
everything in and out. But I had no idea of how the questions are going to be because there were like 30 practice questions in total for
Mhm.
CETP that I could get access to. So that's just to understand how it's going to be. But
Okay.
then there's no question bank or
Oh.
like Praxis provides. There was nothing like that.
Mhm.
So I think in a way that was helpful because I was just going into this thinking, whatever comes, I'm just going to try it
Yeah.
out and see how
Okay.
it works. So after the exam, when people ask me, how was it? This was the first exam in my life where I had to say that I have no idea because there are like the four MCQ, the options, all four would be
Okay.
right. You have to choose the
Oh,
best one.
okay.
That is how it is. So I thought, I don't know, I thought what I wrote was right, but it could have just been wrong. So
Mhm.
till I got my results, I had no idea if I'm passing or
Okay.
failing.
Okay. Okay, Preet?
Wow, that does not sound very nice. It's pretty scary. Actually, I don't know if I can add a lot in this because I actually gave my praxis exam 5 years
Okay.
back when I was doing my C's SLP from India. So that's a different thing we could get into, which also means that they accepted my praxis from 5 years ago. I gave it in
Okay.
2017 and they accepted it in 2022. I didn't have to give it again. which also takes us back to that we don't have to, like Sheba said, wait till you have your licensing or have your PR in hand. The day you're applying for PR 2 years ago, you can actually study, give your exams. I don't know about CETP, you could check it. If that's valid, but most of these exams are valid for 5 years. I was almost at the brink, but I think I kind of went 5 years and a few days ahead, but they accepted it, of course. But yeah, I think 5 years is an average that they accept. So don't wait till the end. You're sure you want to move somewhere. You're sure you want to do finishing master's, study it right then and there. Give your exam, re-give it then and there. Don't wait until going, because they do accept from previous. Like 5 years is a long time, and they accept
Yeah, correct. That's right. Okay. That's interesting. Okay.
I'll just add something to this.
Yes.
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
For CETP, in Ontario, you need to get your primary eligibility cleared with CASLPO, and only then you will be able to give your CETP. Praxis can be a standalone exam. I think you can give it regardless of your licensing situation. But for CETP, at least in Ontario, you need to have the college cleared your credentials and evaluation done, saying that you're eligible, and only then you can give your CETP. So that'll be the first step, and then your computer exam.
Okay, so this is going to be my next question. What are the other requirements you need? Like, for example, you need to clear the exam, you have this many hours. But other than that, you also need something like the usual, this a letter from college, a transcript, all of that is required, and it differs in each state.
Yeah. So the first one that I did was get my WES, World Education Services evaluation done. So this kind of evaluates your degree and then matches it to, I think, the Canadian equivalency, and shows them that you got it, what you need to be able to practice in Canada. So that I did that for both my bachelor's and master's. For this, it needs to go through your university from wherever. They need to be sending the documents in, and then that's its own process, WES. So once you get your WES done, then you have to send a letter to RCI for CASLPO. You have to send a letter to RCI asking them to verify your good standing. So that comes with an application, and that was around 3,000 rupees. You send a NEFT with it, with it, and then they will forward that to CASLPO directly. And then your CPC, your clinical hours. So that needs to be in a standard that the college gives you. So your university might have had any form of clinical hours documentation that needs to be put into the form of what the college recommends, each provincial college. And then I think you send it to the college again through your principal or HOD from university.
Okay.
I think that should be enough. If I missed out something.
No, I think just to add, Wes, what she's saying is the credential assessment. Basically, that's what they check on how your transcript Indian scores are converted into Canadian scores and what that equivalent is. It's just identifying the equivalency. And that's what a company called WES does, World Education Services. There might be other companies, but they will generally tell you your state where they want it from.
Yeah, so I mentioned WES because for PR, WES is only applicable. So I had to do WES, so I continued going with it. But of course, there could be other agencies, which I'm not sure.
No, I've heard of this even in the other discussions as well. Yes. Another important question which I wanted to ask is, how do you hear about jobs in Canada when you're in India? Like, how did you know what to apply for, where to look for? Anybody?
Well, I was already in Canada, so I don't think I can take that question.
Okay. Anybody else? Yeah, Sheba.
For me, I had a friend, an occupational therapist who was working here. So I came to know a little bit from her, because right now where I'm working is also like a multi-rehab center. Like it has OTs and BCs and SLPs. So we all work together. So that is one of the way I knew. But but the other information also, like you can get a lot of info from, because I kind of knew which place I'm going to come. In BC itself, I knew I was going to come to Surrey in Vancouver. So around those places, I kind of checked on, where are different, because I knew for a fact that I wanted to start in pediatric rehab center. That's my comfort zone. So I wanted to expand only after, being there. So I looked around for a lot of places which is close to home, because it's not just about which place you want. You have to look at, the commute and how much of time that you can spend on that, and what is the requirements that they want, and if it's going to really, and no, you can't really know everything, but at least if you're prepared halfway through, then maybe
Yeah.
you're ready for whatever's coming next. So it was a
Yeah.
lot of research a little bit, and then of course some help from friends.
Okay. Abhinaya? Yeah.
Yeah, so mine was mostly Indeed.
Okay.
I subscribed to Indeed like a year back, as soon as I started my PR process. So I kept getting a lot of information. So I had every time I get a new status available, I kind of note down the names of the clinics, and then I go back up on Google, check their website, check what they're offering, and then I kind of drop them an email. So I kept doing that. But yes, I got mostly rejections, almost like 40, 50 clinics. And I kept getting rejections saying, it'll be really nice to have you, or really nice to talk to you, but we'll do that as soon as you land in Canada. So I didn't get any interview from India, not a single interview from India, but I tried my best. But once I knew I am going to Ontario, and that was not my choice. That's because I came through PNP to become a PR, which is called a provincial nominee program. Kind of the province, once your application is in the PR process, one of the province kind of picks you saying, oh, we want this profession or this application for our province. So then when they pick, you have to go to that. If you decide to, then you have to go to that. So Ontario picked my application. So I was going to end up in Ontario. Then that kind of cut down my research process. So then I went up on Google Maps. I typed speech and language clinics in Ontario. And then I kind of kept going around that. And then I spoke to a couple of people to ask which is a nice neighborhood to go and settle in Ontario. And I got some answers for that. So with that, I kind of chose the place that I want to go to, and then the clinics, just like Sheba said. I think that made sense. And I also wanted a pediatric clinic and a neurodiversity affirming practice. So that's something that I really wanted for myself. And then I found the clinic that I'm right now in through Instagram. And they had a virtual interview session, and they kind of accepted to do that with me from India. And I landed the job in India, and I came here, started with them. So it was quite the research.
Yeah.
That will happen if you have to look from India for Canada.
So if you already have an application set and you have a province, it's easier to look for jobs rather than having a wider net.
Yeah, because then you have to think about licensure for every province. That's difficult.
Yeah.
So once you know your province, you think of license, and then you think of work.
Sheba, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to add. So, like I was saying before, it took me 5 months to get registered as an SLP, right? So 5 months, once I came here, I still needed that job. So even I gave my interview when I was in India itself, and they took me in as an SLP assistant. And then so that, so you work as an SLP assistant till you get your license, like your conditional license, or you get fully licensed. And then so I did work for as an SLP assistant for those 5 months. Yeah. And one more thing is that BC in general they have a lack of SLPs. Okay, as in we're very few right now. Even servicing in school, so I have almost like 300 to 400 students in my caseload. So we're like one SLP for 5 different schools. That's how less pediatric SLPs are. So that could be also one of the reasons why BC is trying to be more lenient with their requirements, because they want more SLPs to be in BC. Yeah. That's why SLP assistants, for that you don't really need to even have an SLP background. I have a lot of people who have worked or who have other basic your backgrounds, but they still come and work as SLP assistants, because you're always under an SLP who's putting all the goals. They have made everything. You just need to practice or put that into reality, basic, and you get some kind of guidance with that. Yeah.
Does Preet want to add about this? How did you find out about jobs?
No, I think it's pretty similar. Like Sheba said, even I started giving interviews from India itself. Online, I had a friend here too, and I gave interview in her workplace and a few more places. And then again, like I said, my license, because of the exam, I didn't have to wait that much longer in my exam. Within like 4 to 8 weeks. So that kind of, I just started working. I came here and then I looked out. I actually went physically to a few more clinics from Indeed, like Abhinaya did. I went through Indeed, and then I
Okay.
just whichever I really liked, I went personally to see them, and whichever I really liked in the first month, I kind of agreed with them, because like they said, there is a lack of SLPs. So if you're working in a pediatric or a private setup, they're all open to taking more SLPs in. So yeah.
Okay. So I just want to drop in here and talk about PhD, which Aruna has done. So maybe we can talk about how you decided to go about it. How does a student know that it's the right thing for them? Maybe we can talk about that.
Well, I clearly didn't think it was the right thing for me because
Okay.
I haven't stuck with academics. But back then, I thought I wanted to get into academics, which is why right after my master's, I reached out to a couple of universities, well, throughout the world, some in Canada, some in the UK, and some in Australia. So you have to figure out what kind of research line. You don't need to have a research question in mind, obviously, but figure out what kind of research line you want to get into. Do your research about your professors in each of the college, which college has enough funding, which prof is accepting clients. So the only way you can find out is by emailing them. About 90% of the times you don't hear from them, they just ghost you. But 10% of them get back to you with either a yes or a no. And McGill got back to me. So one of the profs there said, okay, they are looking for candidates and they wanted someone with a clinical background. Although I had zero work experience, I still had the theoretical knowledge, so they were willing to go with that.
Okay.
Because most people with a clinical background end up going into the work service and not into academics. And yeah, with that, I filed for my study permit. The college gives you a set of documentation that you need to file for your study permit. You get that, you land in Canada, and by then your life is pretty much set because most PhD students can live on a stipend. It's not a livable wage. I don't know what it is right now. I don't think it's a livable wage anyway. They
Okay.
might give you about $20,000 a year, which is ridiculous, but that's what you get.
Okay.
If you could also try, I did the communication sciences and disorders program, but there is a new one called the integrated program in neuroscience, where if you're willing to work with, and most of the stuff that we do is neuroscience related. If you wanted to work with children with autism, I did adults, that's my jam. So if you wanted to work with adults with a stroke, for example, try and apply through the IPN program, because anything brain related gets a lot more funding than just communication sciences. So your stipend is about $5,000 to $6,000 a year more. It's not significant, but as a student, it is significant, especially when you're trying to pay, you have to pay tuition, you have to pay your rent. And I did it in Quebec. So rentals were low, extremely low, and tuition costs were really low. But if you were to do your PhD in Ontario or British Columbia, I don't know, the rentals are super high. Your stipend is basically enough to get you by living and maybe eating 2 meals a day.
Oh, wow.
Unless they've changed it. But you can also work. But within, again, it depends on the type of visa you have. As a student visa, I was only allowed to work on campus. So you do take up odd jobs. I did a teaching assistant program. So I became an audiology teaching assistant, and that gives you a lot more money. So there are options, but those are not very frequent. Yeah, and then I decided not to stick with academics because that's a different rat race that I wasn't aware of and I wasn't willing to get into. It's not easy becoming an academic in Canada or pretty much anywhere in the world right now. The number of publications you need to get out each year, you will be then hired in some random university. You won't get positioned unless you're brilliant, of course, and you have a lot of publications within your PhD. It's very difficult to get hired as an associate prof or an assistant prof. So you'll have to go into more remote colleges, and it's very, very, very hard to get tenure. And especially if you're just on a work permit. So at that point, you want to try getting your PR and your citizenship because they'll have difficulties giving someone tenure just on a work permit. Yeah, so while doing all of that, I realized academics is probably not for me. And I was really thankful that I had a clinical degree to fall back on. And that's when I just decided to move to BC. Why I moved to BC, I don't know, but I moved to BC and I started private practice here.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
So
but
did
I
you
don't want to
like,
discourage anybody.
yeah,
If academics is your jam, I think you should pursue it. It didn't give me a lot of joy, but I'm pretty sure if that is what you're looking for,
Mhm.
yeah, I think people should still go ahead and pursue
Oh,
it. Yeah, the first step is figure out what area of research and
mhm.
contact professors all over. Don't stick to one university because there are higher chances than not that you're not going to hear from them.
Okay. Okay, that was interesting. That's a whole different journey which you had. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, but I'll be happy to chat about it on a
Yes.
different day if they want to talk
Maybe
about
even I think
academics.
so.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking of another separate, like a short video just about PhD and that part. But anyway, we'll
Sure.
talk about that later. So I'll
Yeah.
just get back to the work part. So let's talk about the work culture. So what's something which you thought was so different in Canada, which, compared to India and Canada? I think either Aruna or Sheba, any of you can answer this. How's the work culture like? What's so different? All of
I
you are
worked in
smiling.
India. I
Oh,
mean, I did work for like 2 hours in Columbia, Asia, but for like 7 months. And it was such a new hospital. I saw like 4 people and for audiology. So I really can't comment because I was just waiting to leave India. I had my student permit ready. I knew when I was going to start. I didn't know what to do
okay.
for 7 months. So yeah.
Okay. Preet, Sheba.
I think one of the biggest difference that I have, working here is that I never have to bring my work home. The minute that I close my laptop or I finish seeing a client, I'm done with that. I'm able to categorize that I have other life. So
Okay.
basically in India, it was definitely not like that. I remember sitting up even at 3 a.m. in the morning, just trying to finish reports and sending it. And, there's no work-life balance. One of the reasons, I had a lot of my friends who asked me, why are you coming to Canada? Do you want do you think life is going to be better because of that? I said, it's not even about any of that. I want that work-life balance. And obviously that's something amazing. I really wanted to have that, and that's one thing. The second thing is the way that people value you. In India, people don't even know what is an SLP. I'm sure we've all had to explain it, forget even to strangers, but even to people in our own family, we will have to explain what is an SLP. But here that's really different. People understand the value of what you do. They really appreciate you. You have people not just in your profession but other professions who know that this is an important job and what you do matters. And the third thing, which I really personally like, is that in India, even if the reason why, I mean, income-wise, definitely the income that you make in India versus what you make here is significantly different and higher. So one of the reasons for that is because people in India cannot afford, if you're going to put your therapy SLP rates or per hour rates at higher rate, right? But here, there's a lot of things which the government is providing, especially if it is for autism or people who have lower income. There are a lot of variety children's program or just the government itself who are providing these many $1,000 per year, and that's not just for your therapy, but that's also for what your child needs with respect to that, even getting toys or applications or iPads or anything that you need. So all of those things which and that comes as a fund they get, that's like an autism funding that they get, or just for anybody, any child or person with disability. So with that, they're able to afford it, and we get paid reasonably. So I think these are some of the things which I felt was amazing.
That's nice. Preet, anything to add?
I think I totally agree. It is the work-life balance that we definitely didn't have back in Bombay. I think we work Monday to Sunday to just get kids going on the go. But yeah, I think one more thing just to add to everything Sheba said, I completely agree. It's just I think another thing is documentation that they are very careful about. Like every session that we have is charted. We have to put down notes of every session that we've done. Once that is done, any reports, any schools are really great to work with. I think Sheba already works in a school, but I go to observe in schools. The principal, from the principal to the teacher of the class to the education assistant who's taking care of the child, everybody knows the child in and out. They're open to taking up strategies that they need to work and transition the child into from a therapy session to a home to a school. So the transitioning phase for a child is also taken care of really well, which is of course hard in India because there's a lot of students there. And like Sheba said, it's more of the lack of knowledge there. So I think it's in a lot of ways there are a lot of things to learn out here. And of course the savings that we make out here are also more than what we would do in India, along with the work-life balance that we get. So yeah.
Abhinaya, do you want to add something there?
Very new. Still trying to
Yes.
build my caseload. I'm building my caseload.
Yes.
But chanting, yes, very new. Documentation, I'm trying to, the language in the report itself is quite different. So I'm kind of catching up with that, with a lot of help from my colleagues at work. It's great.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think very warm and welcoming.
Okay.
And the wait list for the families on the wait list, I feel like they value us more because they are like on the wait list for 3 months, 6 months before they can just get one session with us or like a couple of sessions with us. So they really value a time with SLP, which seems nice.
Yeah, I think when I spoke with a couple of, this time when I was in India, I spoke with a couple of private practitioners. And I think they were able to get about each client 2 to 3 sessions a week. And that's a unicorn in Canada. If you get 3 sessions a week, you're absolutely lucky. If you can get 1 session in a week, then that's amazing. So the 3 times a week is not unheard of, but it's very, very rare. And I know that's almost like a norm in India, which is a good norm to have. I mean, I wish we could have that here, but we just don't have. It's a dearth of SLPs. Yeah.
Yeah, I even have 5 sessions a week. Like I don't do that, but I know a lot of people who do that. And I remember talking to Aruna about it, and she was like, I see some patients like once a month, and I just can't wrap my head around that. Yeah, Aditi, yes, I will get about the master's part to you, but you can add on anything you want here.
Yeah, in terms of practice, like it is also very like ethical, and the privacy that you have to maintain for your clients is like way more serious than back in India. Like you cannot name your client. Even in documentation and even otherwise, you have to use initials, and you can't disclose any kind of information that's revealing not their date of birth, not their diagnosis, while you're like outside the clinic. So those are a few things, like the ethics of the practice are like very strict.
Okay. So is the wait list a lot? Like I know Aruna has spoken about it. Even in schools, like we were talking about, Sheba was talking about how you see 300 or 400. Is that like the number of kids you have in a whole year?
Yes.
Yes, 300.
I'll almost cry if you ask me that question because the number of children that you have to service is huge. It is so much. Like I have separate folders for assessment waitlist. I have separate a document for screening waitlist and for therapy waitlist. And this is happening throughout the year, which means like, you know, when I start school, I have some kids who are already from the previous year, right? So you have to start with monitoring them. To be honest, in most schools, I'm not even able to see one child, one child for at least 1 session throughout the year. It's that many because even if I'm going to school, going to school only once in a week. So in that 1 week, I have in that 1 day, I would have 50 students that I have to see in my caseload, plus the new referrals, plus the kindergarten referrals, plus what a teacher would want to just have. Can you please come and quickly look at this child? I mean, it's just 5 minutes that they want, but I will have like at least 1 hour of documentation to write for that, and even the time that I spent after for it, right? So it is a lot, and that is not just with respect to school. Even when the private setup that I'm working at, we have a lot of, because we work here as employees and consultants, like contractors, independent contractors. So most of them prefer to work as independent contractors, which means they can choose the amount of time that they work. So most people, so for example, I'm working in school now, and then after school, I would come maybe 3 or 4 hours, and I'll come in the evening to a private clinic. So what happens is, everybody would want either that time, which is in the afternoon slot where kids can come after school, or which is in India as well. I think we've seen that.
Yeah.
Like there would be kids who are below 5 years who would all want the morning session.
Morning
They will
slot,
not
yeah.
have the availability of therapists like that. So they'll still go on a waiting list because of that. But apart from that, just to get this, I told about how, once you get your autism funding and all of that, it is, but just to get that funding, the amount of documentation that you have to go through and the procedure, which is like first getting all of this from. So at the school level, I will have to write reports and give it to the teacher and the LST team, the school team, who's going to refer to a doctor or a pediatrician. And from there, it has to go, it takes almost, to get to that doctor's point, they have a wait list of 1 to 2 years right now. So I have kids who are coming to me and paying from their pocket because they cannot afford to lose that time with the child, which is really sad. But once you get to that place of getting the funding and getting all of those things approved, then it just continues and, it's good. But the wait list is long, is really long.
Okay. Wow. I think I've even heard other people talk about this. And it's not just Canada, I think, right? This is something which I've seen in the US, Australia, everybody talks about it. Only in India, you have clinics in every road, and it's not that bad. But to find a good SLP, again, it's going to be hard. But the wait list I've seen in countries out of, it's really hard.
The thing is, this is not just about the kids or them getting it. It's even for us, because Canada as such, as compared to it has free healthcare. Canada is offering free healthcare, which means if it's free, you have to either wait a lot for it. You're using your time is money, right? So if you're not giving money, then you have to give your time for it. So it's basically that.
Okay, all right. Okay. We will discuss. I don't know, is it okay? Can you stay for a little while longer, or is you have to leave like? Yes, okay.
Yeah, I just have a client at 9, so I'm good to go up at 9.
Okay, all right.
9 here, Canada time.
9 here, okay, got it. Okay, so I want to, all of you have a lot of patients, a lot of wait lists. I want to ask about burnout, because this is something I've been discussing in every discussion till now, and it's something which was brought about by the US SLPs, and they had major burnout, but they were able to manage it as well. So if I can ask you guys about burnout you face as a working SLP, what do you think? I think I'll ask Aruna this, because she has a private practice, and I'm assuming you would be the person with a lot of burnout.
Well, it's easy to experience burnout, especially because I own a business and I only do private practice. If you don't manage your hours, so your time management has to be good. And if you don't manage your hours, it's easy to experience that burnout in about 5 to 6 months. More often than not, as a new SLP, we're tempted to take on as many clients as we can, only because we think we're never going to build our caseload, and we're greedy. We're greedy because of lack of information, not because of any other reason. And only because we think we can't build our client load and we won't get the experience if we don't take on this client, but it'll come to you. So yeah, if you don't manage your time, it's super easy to experience a burnout, because for every hour of client that you see, you have about an hour of unpaid work. So the documentation, the prep, and figuring out, especially in private practice, every session needs to be different. And as a new SLP, I think the cognitive load is quite high, because you have to plan every session, or at least I did when I started working as an SLP in the private practice. I had to plan up, because you'll see a lot of kids with behavioral concerns coming in. And if they don't like what you've planned, you'll have to immediately pivot and do something else. So you would have planned about 10 different activities. So all of that goes into your unpaid time, and the anxiety adds to it. So just time management is, I think, really important. Start off with about 4 to 5 kids in a day, which is still a lot, but much better than what I'm doing now. And then gradually, once your experience improves, you'll learn how you can use one toy with multiple ways, and how you can trick kids into liking the toy, for example. And then you can start taking on more clients. And also for me, major burnout, because I worked weekends for the longest time, and only now that I've stopped working weekends, I say that, but I have just a few virtual clients on weekends. I think not working the weekend mentally did wonders for me. Yeah, because I used to work 7 days a week for about, I only stopped working last year. Yeah, so manage your time. I think once that's done, you're good. And also you don't have to accept all clients that come your way. If you're not experienced, feel free to say, I'll refer you to somebody who's probably more experienced and will be a better fit for the client. I've only learned to do that in the last 2 years. So if I see an early intervention kiddo, I know I'm not equipped, someone else will probably be better off. So I go ahead and refer, although that child ends up going on the wait list, unfortunately. But the anxiety that came with working with an early intervention kiddo, for me, that's not my cup of tea. I would stay up at night wondering what to do. So that also contributes to your burnout. So figure out the kind of clients you want to see. And I think it's totally all right to say you're not good at it. And I don't think there's any shame in accepting that we're not good at with certain population, but we're really good with a different type of population. So yeah, once you've accepted that, I think you'll be good to go.
That's great. I think the most important thing is to say no. As an SLP, I think, and all of us are very empathetic, and it's really hard for us to say no to a client or a person or anybody in general. But learning to say no when the area of expertise is not under your bracket, I think that's very important. Yes, Sheba, do you want to add to this about burnout?
I mean, I think a bit of it comes from, working in India, and then, it's kind of like that social pressure of how you have to work from 9 to 6, or like, the more you work, that's the kind of, I don't know, acceptance, and you feel like, oh, she's working so much. I mean, it's basically so negative. We've never understood the stress associated with it and how much we would come out of it. And yeah, so basically a lot of times we just make work our life, but work is not supposed to be like work is just supposed to be fueling life,
Part of it, yeah.
Yeah, and so just like if you can kind of find that balance and choose your priorities, I think it's so much easier. It's very, very, very difficult. I can't even explain how difficult it is to just change something that you've been conditioned for years together and then move into something else. It's kind of, I always try to think about it as the burden of our generation. Like so many of every generation has a burden of themselves. Ours is to figure out how to put away all those negativity or negative conditioning that we had, and try to like kind of move on to the next one. So
Yeah.
it's just very variable, I would say.
Yeah, it depends on each person, right? It's how you take it. Yeah. Okay. Preet, do you want to add to this? Okay. Yeah, Abhinaya, yes, go ahead.
Sorry, so I just wanted to add to what Sheba said. It's very true, that mentality. Post PG in India, I hustle. I worked in a special school. I did my own tele. I worked in a private center and a hearing aid center. It was all over the place, 7 days, almost 7 days a week.
Yeah.
Pushing myself and all that. And one major goal, I lost my voice over the process, so I had to like take a break to really get myself some voice therapy done. So I landed here and I decided, I took up what Aruna said. That is, do not think that your caseload won't build. Don't overload yourself quickly. So right now, it's just like four clients per day so far. And I'm not pushing it. That's for Feb.
Yeah.
And that's it. So
Okay,
then
that's
once I'm good with charting, because
Yeah,
charting
yeah.
is my time. I'm not an expert in
Okay.
it yet. So for me, that takes a lot of mental time. So I think that's very good advice what Aruna just gave.
Okay, that's nice. Preet?
Yeah, I think burnout, like because we come from India,
Yeah.
I think like the work we did there, honestly, even out here, like the way people work is a lot of work from home culture. Could be the COVID that added to it. Like even when I tell people I go 5 days a week, is such a big thing. They're like, how can you go out 5 days? Because everybody's working from home.
Yeah.
That itself is such a big shift that that's the maximum number of hours people work here, and that also from home versus what we work. So honestly, this is like Sheba said, it's not that big a burnout. There are days when I'm actually seeing 8 or 9 kids a day. Like that's 9 hours in a row that I'm just seeing kids. So that does kind of go down, but then I kind of cover it up the next day.
Yeah.
Too many kids. So then that's what, like Aruna said, kind of do the time
Balance.
management.
Yeah.
You can work around with it, like because some areas in the city have a lot more kiddos, and I mean there's no SLP there, so that's the day when it's really loaded, and then the other day I work at 2-3 separate clinics.
Okay.
So that's how I kind of balance and try to not get the burnout.
Okay. Is it common to work in 2-3 places? Because I think both of you are doing that. right? It's common, like, because you don't get
Yeah.
I think Sheba works in Preet Pool, and Preet, you also work in 2 3 clinics. Is that how it is? Consultant basis?
Yeah,
Or
I think
contractor one, I think.
pretty similar to India. We call them consultants out here. I think we are called contractors, independent
Mhm.
contractors.
Okay.
So yeah, it's pretty, I think the work culture wise, it's pretty similar. You can choose, because I think that's also because we both came on our PR. That's why we
Okay.
have the independence. But if you're on a work permit, or
You
you're
might
just
be.
as a,
Mhm.
yes, then you might have to be working at
Okay.
one place. But yeah, I think that's the difference.
All right.
Yeah, it pretty much depends on what you want. Like even when I was offered the job back, I was in India, they told me you can choose an employee position or I can be a contractor. So the basic difference is that I can, if I'm going to choose to be an employee, they're going to, the clinic that I work at, they have 6 different locations, which is spread across BC. So if they can say that you have to work 2 days in this place, 2 days here and 2 days there, but this number of hours, I have to do that, because I'm an
Okay.
employee. Versus if I'm a contractor, I can choose which hours, which days, and where I
Makes
want to work.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, there's few pluses, pros and cons. If you're as an independent contractor, your hourly rate is more than as an employee.
Mhm.
But again, you can, as an independent contractor, you can choose your flexible hours. Now, the cons are you don't get medical benefits always, which an employee will give, all the
Okay.
benefits.
Okay.
Other things, your taxation is taken care of. If you're an
Okay.
employee, you don't have to bother about that. Here, you have to find your own CEO, figure it out on your
Got
own.
it.
If you're a contractor. So yeah, I think there's pros and cons, but once you have your license, once you have everything in place, then I think this situation or conversation comes in
Yeah.
place.
Okay. All right. Okay. I think one of the last questions I had here, because we've pretty much covered everything, is the median salary for SLPs. I don't know if you guys know about this, or if you have a website which could help people. You can just let me know about that. Because even in the US, when the discussion with the US SLPs, the ASHA website had everything, like, about the salaries in different states. I don't know if there's something like that for Canada. If
I think the SAC, the Speech and Audiology Canada, which is the equivalent of ASHA here, I think that has information
Okay.
on it. I don't know how much in detail, but I
Okay.
had read a little bit on that.
Okay.
So,
Another, yeah,
sorry,
Sheba,
one of the
yes.
just one of the thing is that, so basically, like, all the provinces in Canada have like a very different expenses, like, so basically even income is kind of divided in that way,
Okay.
which is why that's the main reason why we don't have like one single license for Canada, like SLP license. Because if I'm going to be working in BC and I'm going to service a client in Quebec, the client has to pay a lot more money to me, or I have to take a lot less money to be
Got
servicing
it.
that client. So each province has a different, but there is a minimal wage, and there is a minimum wage, which is a minimum wage workers and all of that. But when it comes to different private setups, it's totally their discretion.
Okay.
Like they can decide. I know people who are working from, who have like $60 per hour to $110 per hour. So it basically depends on how much you are going to,
Okay.
get into the interview process and all of that. But if you're to ask me, and if you're a licensed SLP, it still depends on the number of years of experience you have. That is something that's, all over it's considered that way. So at least if you're just with 1 year experience, for sure you can get at least $50,000 per year to maybe 90 to 100 per year, depending on how your experience increases to 10 years
Okay.
or so.
Okay, that makes sense. Another thing which I wanted to ask here is the salary of an SLP who works in school versus private practice versus a medical setup. Does that differ?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Which one's higher?
So even when you say all of that, that still comes from, so if you're going to get, say, like $50,000 is your annual. So everything is annual income if you're talking about an employee. So from that annual income, just like how I said, your medical is free, right? Like the tax that the government of Canada takes is a huge chunk depending on your
Got it.
salary slab. Yeah. So if it's like you are below 30,000 per year, it's going to be one particular slab. If it's going to be 40 or 50, so the slab keeps increasing. So
Okay.
the tax that they take is going to be different. Then there's going to be medical benefits. Then there's going to be insurance. Then there's going to be like, I'm working at school, so there is like Surrey School Teachers Association. There's also going to be CPP, the pension plan. So there's like a chunk that's going to be deducted. So even when you're working, you might, if you're getting like 100% is your salary, you might get 30 to 35% cut, or even 40% cut, and then you get this. But if you're going to work in a private setup, they might not have so much of the benefits. So ideally, when you think about it, it's going to depend on what you want. So I just started my career here, right? So I want to make sure that I am going to be saving for my pension. I am going to do all of this. So for me, all of this makes sense. And I'm in a workable age where I can move between you were asking about, I'm working in 2 setups. So I'm working in school, and then I'm going to a private setups where I'm working as an independent contractor. So it just aligns with what I want right now. And I can definitely keep changing that accordingly as well. So it does, kind of change according to
according to your wishes, your perception, right?
needs.
Correct.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Just to put forward the hourly rate, I think the school SLPs and then I think the medical SLPs get somewhere similar, a little more.
Okay.
And private SLPs, I think, will make generally more than the others. But again, that's the benefits that you get as a medical SLP or a school SLP for all your medical benefits, your TPP, like she said, all of the insurance things that are taken care of are not there on private practice. That money goes out of your pocket.
Your pocket.
I think it's again like similar to India private practice. When you make and if it's successful and you're working fine, then that's going to give you good money. If you don't have
Good
enough
money.
caseload and you're not able to make good money, then of course you're
Correct.
going
Makes
with that. So yeah.
I don't know anybody else working in hospitals. Do you guys know anybody? So is I don't know how the work culture is over there.
I am moving soon to a hospital, so maybe next year
I'll talk to you next time.
then I'll know the difference.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
all right. I think this is most of the discussion about work stuff. I want to get back about visa, but I think both of you have PR, so we'll talk about that later. I'll just have a little bit of a discussion with Aditi about the master's university program. So first question, Aditi, is how did you decide on which university to apply for?
Okay, so there are very few universities that accept international students, especially that has changed a lot after COVID. So due to COVID and post-COVID, a lot of universities stopped accepting international students. So you have very few universities accepting you anyways. So what I did was I just went through the course like their eligibility requirements, plus what the course is offering, plus what are the kind of labs and opportunities available on campus, and on the basis of that I picked a few universities, and yeah, mostly that. So was how I was picking universities.
Okay, all right. So what is the requirements you needed as a student from India to apply over there? I'm assuming it would include your transcript and all of that. Just give me a little bit of it.
So it depends again from university to university, but mostly in Canada, all universities also need a prerequisite. So there would be a bunch of courses that you need to have before you get into the university. And even if you have a degree in like BSLP back in India, it does not count. Yeah, it is not equivalent. So they have courses like statistics and psychology and behavioral sciences or linguistics. So there are like a bunch of courses which would be listed on the university website, and then you would have to send an email to the university and confirm that you have all those prerequisites, and if they approve of those requisites, then you can apply. Some universities don't have the process of responding to your emails for these eligibility criteria, so you would just have to apply and find out if you match their prerequisite requirements. And other than that, of course, your transcript needs to be converted through WES. That is what I was trying to say earlier, that WES is also required for your undergrad transcript. So when you have to like convert your BSLP transcript and while applying, and yeah, other than that, it's your grades,
Oh,
IELTS,
okay.
SOPs,
Yeah.
LORs, the general stuff.
Okay. So
Yeah.
again, it depends on each university what their criteria is, right?
Yeah, but IELTS and SOPs and LORs and transcripts are
Transcript,
general
everybody.
requirements.
Okay, all right. Okay, so how long did the application process take?
It did not take me too long. It's basically from I started applying in October. Like I started the process of collecting documentation in October 2022, and the deadlines were in Jan. So like that is when it was ending.
Okay.
So it was just like the span of 3 to 4 months. Yeah.
Okay, all right. And why did you decide on Canada?
Oh, I did apply to UK and Canada.
Okay.
I got more acceptance from UK as compared to Canada, but the prospects in terms of work and getting the work permit and long term getting jobs is more right now in Canada
In
as
Canada.
compared to UK. It is quite difficult to find jobs in UK right now.
Yeah.
Even if there is a demand, like you would have to move to a city which might not be too comfortable just to get that job. So I didn't want to compromise that. And other than that, like personal reasons that I had more family and relatives here, so that made it
makes
easier.
sense. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, tell me a little bit about your university and your course, because I have heard in other discussions that whatever you study in masters in US or Canada is very similar to what you've done in BSc, because they don't have a separate bachelor's in speech language pathology course there, right? So can you tell me a little bit about the course itself?
Yeah, that's true. Honestly, so all my classmates, we are like 50 students. All of them are from a different background. Nobody has a background in speech language pathology. A lot of them are even from like a BA linguistics background. So it's like completely varied. Nobody needs to have like a particular science background per se as well to join this master's course. So we do study a lot of things from scratch. However, I won't say that everything is the same, because
Okay.
the way that they're teaching and the kind of practical approach to teaching a lot of things is quite different from what we did back in India. In terms of every class has a lab associated to it, so you get to like do whatever you study in theory, you get to practice that as in form of a lab.
Okay.
And even like the anatomical part of it, so whatever you're studying, you study a lot of it from the human body perspective as well. We didn't study anatomy in as much detail, and that's why you might see it turning up on your CETP exams, because we do study a lot of anatomy
Okay.
here, as opposed to back in India.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about the clinical aspect? So I'm assuming from second semester onwards, you would be having clinical aspect as well. Do you get postings outside? Do you get externships, internships? Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we do have placement components, and we have a required set of hours, which is again decided by the CASLPO, which is needed for us to be a registered SLP over here. So we do get those placements, and it's not as stringent as in India, and it's not as many hours as in India, because over here we would just like me right now, I started my placement this semester and I have placement just once a week, and I'm seeing just one client in my entire week. So it's not at all as much as in India, and it changes. So if you're in a different placement, like if people are placed in pediatrics, then they would be seeing more clients. So when I get to my pediatric posting, I would probably have more clients as compared to right now, but it's definitely not as many hours as in India. But you do have to complete the required placement, and you will also have like internal placements on campus if your campus has a clinic, and you will also get external placements like community outreach in school setups, in medical setups, in hospitals, etc. So you get
Which the
all that
university
experience.
gives you.
Yeah. They have tie-ups and they give us opportunities.
Okay, all right. Do you have to take up patients independently?
There's a lot of hand holding here, honestly, because like I said, they don't have a background in speech. So the patients cannot, they will not rely on you with the patients because you don't know anything about speech language
Correct.
pathology. This is your first time going into a clinic. So the supervisor is always in the session. And when
Okay.
I spoke to my supervisor personally, she was surprised that we did sessions independently during
Independently.
undergrad. It came as
Yeah.
a shock to them that there is nobody observing your sessions during undergrad. But yeah, the clinical supervisor is always observing your sessions. All your sessions are recorded um, by the university. So that is there. And then you have to do all the documentation pre-session and post-session. So everything is reviewed. So, and you have to, it's not like you can just write something and go and do something else or just eyeball. You have to do exactly what you
Yeah.
plan. So it's a little strict
Okay.
like that, just because we are like student clinicians and it's a student setup. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I think it's also preparing you for the job aspect, but everybody was talking about the documentation part, right? Yeah. Okay. It's a 2-year course, right? Master's?
Yeah, the course that I'm doing is 2 years. There are a few universities that offer 3 years masters.
Okay.
Because again, it's like a master's where students who don't have a background in SLP come in. So
Okay.
there are universities who offer 3 years masters as well.
Fine. Makes sense. I'll just move on to the financial part. So student loans for this. So I know that most of the people from India would need a student loan to study over there. Is it manageable? Is it something which you would think it's manageable or so?
Um, it, I mean, obviously
It's
the
a vague
fees are very
question,
high
yeah.
in
Yeah,
Ontario.
yeah.
So in terms of how manageable it is, the issue with studying masters in this course is very like intense, and you have to like give all your hours, so there is very little time for you to get out of your school or university work and do some kind of a part-time.
Part-time,
It's hard to
okay.
even like take out time for that. So
Okay.
you might have some struggle trying to do that side hustle and make that money. It's not going to be possible. So when you're coming here with to do masters in speech language pathology, you need to be prepared that you might not have the time to get that part-time job, or make time for things. Um, because the only time that you have free is weekends, unlike engineering courses where you have to go to college just 2 days. We have to go to classes 5 days a week, and
Okay.
we have work after class hours as well, and class hours are also like unreasonable. So to manage that financial aspect and to be able to manage your expenses might not be very easy for everybody. And hence, so when you think about the loan aspect, you will have to like only
Think about
repay
this.
once you get a job.
Got it. Okay. So yeah, because part-time job is something which people talk about, but if it's really stressful, I don't think you would have the time to do that, right? So
Yeah, I mean, I have a on-campus job, but they can't give me a shift because I don't have the available hours because
okay.
I am in class all the time. So
Got it.
you might like land a job, but to be able to give hours to that job, it will be difficult. Plus, you can't be a TA because like a teaching assistant that we were talking about earlier, it is not possible for masters in speech language pathology students to be teaching assistants. Only PhD students can be teaching assistants.
Okay.
Unless you are I'm doing a clinically based program, so mine is a course based, and then there is a thesis based, which is combined program with PhD. So if you're in a combined PhD program or you're a PhD student, then you can be a teaching assistant, which will pay you. But if you're a master's student, you can't be a teaching assistant specific to speech language pathology.
Got it.
So you won't make money there as well.
Okay.
Wait
The
till you
last
get it.
question, okay. Last question here is the scholarships. Do you know of any scholarships available for this? Because I don't know if the Canada government provides, a university provides. Are you aware of any?
So there is a new to Canada grant, which all students landing into Canada will get in their first semester, which is, I guess, I'm not too sure if it's $1,000 or $2,000, but that's not like a lot. Plus, there are no scholarships, like there are no graduate scholarships that are available to
Okay.
international students. And other than that, there are scholarships in the speech language pathology department, but again, they would come up like once in a year or once in 2 years, and it is not very likely that an international student would be given preference there as well. And then there is the SAC scholarship, which again international students are not eligible for.
Okay. So it's not
Very,
any. Oh,
yeah.
all right. Okay. Okay. So this covers most of the masters in the financial aspects. Just last few questions for everybody. Do you guys know of any other courses related to SLP in Canada? Because, like, I don't know if this is a thing, but diploma courses or courses which you can do for a year and you can work as an SLP there. Does anybody else know of anything like that?
There is a course, basically, it's a PG diploma in communication disorders. It's a degree that you can do, but again, you will not be allowed to practice as an SLP, but you would be a communication disorder assistant or an SLPA, as they would say in other provinces. So the PG diploma will definitely not lend to being a speech language pathologist. Yeah.
All right. I wanted to know if you have attended any conferences or so in Canada. So, like how we have ISHACon, I'm sure there's something for Canadian SLPs as well. Can you tell me a little bit about that if anybody has attended any? I don't know if anybody, Sheba, yeah.
Yeah. So one of the things that I wanted to say is it's compared to this. So basically, we have something called as professional development days. And this is in school right now, but I think so basically, if you want to renew your registration for CSHPC, at the end of 3 years, you need to have 400 or it's like 130 credits or something. So that's like, so how do we have the CRE in India? We have like CCC here. That's like the continuing competency credits. So that's what you need. So you need these many. So in school, basically, we have once in 2 months or once in a month or something, we have like one day, which is like a professional development day. And on that day, you basically you're just focusing on whatever. And right now, it's to our discretion how we want to spend that time, how we want to develop ourselves. So during that, throughout the schools, we have people who do given maybe some speeches or do workshops, or we can do whatever we want within that. Now on the 1st of March, I'm actually having one workshop. That's going to be the first workshop I'm going to be attending here in person. That is on apraxia of speech, childhood apraxia of speech. So I'm looking forward to that. But apart from that, I have done like very small webinars here and there, which is like, and that is not specific to SLP, I would say. It's like, just, regulating regulation for kids, or, sensory SLP, or, something sensory processing related is what I have done here, or even play-based.
Okay. Makes sense. Anybody else, if you attended anything?
Yeah, I think I've also attended few online sessions. I haven't attended any in person yet. But yeah, the online sessions, either live or recorded, I think some of them they accept from the US too. The CCCs are mostly from Canada itself. So they mention which ones are accepted, and then you can do those courses that are connected to it. But I've done the shorter ones. I haven't done any workshop in person yet.
There is a conference coming up in 2024. SAC is organizing that, and I think that's happening in DC. I got a couple of emails, but yeah, I can't fly out, but maybe Preet or Sheba might know about it. There are conferences, I guess.
All right. So like a yearly conference, I'm assuming, to keep up with your credits and all that. All right. So the last 2-3 questions we have. What would you suggest? How would you suggest SLPs to move to Canada? What do you like about it? Anybody from India who wants to move? What would you say? What do you like about it? Abhinaya, because you're unmuted.
Okay, so how to get here? I'm I'm not sure if there's anybody from India who is in Canada on a work permit as an SLP.
Yeah.
I don't know if any of the others here in the panel have friends who are on work permit, because I couldn't find any
Okay.
agency, any clinic to recruit me for work permit, because I tried that out first. So
Okay.
there's something called LMIA, Labor Market Impact Assessment.
Okay.
So any organization that needs to hire people from a foreign country have to get that assessment done.
Okay.
Basically, that just says that we don't have any candidate in Canada for this particular role, and hence we are hiring from the other country.
Okay.
And for that, the organization has to pay quite some money, I guess, like $1,000. I'm not sure about the price.
Okay. Okay.
But that is some money that they're going to be spending and a process. And I feel like all the private clinics, I don't think they have that evolved HR system or kind of corporate system to run that for them. And that's the reason why they are not able to give us that job offer for a work permit.
Okay.
And I couldn't find anything. So
Okay.
that's why I went and applied for PR
Yeah.
and
Okay.
applied for PR directly. So I'm not sure
Okay.
about the work part. And what to look forward to one. Yeah, I've been having a great time.
Okay.
Really. Yeah, it's been a really nice break.
Okay.
And very, like I said, very warm and welcoming. And thankfully, I'm an independent contractor right now, but my clinic does have an office, an office in the clinic.
Mhm.
So all the ICs, when they take a lunch break or when they want to like take breaks between their sessions, they kind of land in the office, and we
Okay.
all sit together. We discuss a lot of things, a lot of brainstorming, a lot of helping. I'm getting a lot of input, so I'm enjoying everything so far.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's all I
That's
can
nice.
say.
Okay. I'm sorry, I just forgot about the visa part, and when Abhinaya mentioned, I just remembered it. So it's easier to get a PR and then apply for work there rather than get a work permit, because it's like that's what you said, right? Anybody else
Is it
think?
easier to get a PR? I don't know if I can answer
Okay,
that.
yeah.
But is it possible to get a work permit? I just couldn't find
Okay,
hope
okay.
for it.
Fine,
I did
okay.
my research and I couldn't. Maybe now there's some options opening up. PR is its own
Yeah.
okay. It took a year and a half for me to get that process done.
Okay.
I dropped my application in April of 2022, and I landed here in December of. I got my visa in September of 23. So that was like
Okay.
1.5 years on its own. So yeah.
Okay. Aditi, do you want to add something?
About the visa,
Yeah.
I wouldn't know about like the
Yes.
work visa, because
Okay.
came here on a student visa, and I would get like a postgraduate work permit. And
Mhm.
since I have graduated from here, it shouldn't be such a struggle to get a job here, because I
Okay.
have a Canadian degree.
Correct.
But it would be different for somebody who's got a degree in India and then is coming here on a work permit. I don't think that's a very viable option,
Mm.
because like Abhinaya said, then getting a job here is tough.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Sheba?
Yeah, so see, the thing is, even before when I came, there's so much of research and so many people that we talk to, but everybody's needs and experience are extremely different. So we wouldn't know what we want and what we need till we come here. So
Correct.
that is something like, I think LMIA would be a risk to take, because you don't know what you're really signing up for.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But okay. Yeah. Abhinaya, yes.
Sorry, I just want to say one of the persons who really helped me out, kind of like kept in touch and kept talking to me, was Sheba.
Okay.
I already knew her,
Okay.
and that was through LinkedIn. Like we just connected. I reached out to her, and then she actually helped me a lot with the process. I used to
Okay.
randomly text her, and she used to respond. So it's actually really good to connect with people via LinkedIn, via Facebook, and
Okay.
I think that's the network that has helped me most to get here, more than any Google research. That people are very open to responding and answering.
Yeah, I can see that all of you easily responded to me and wanted to help other people. And that's really great. I got 5 people on board from different backgrounds. So that's really helpful for me. Yeah, so I just got a little question about this. So, if they don't get a work permit, so, okay, like in the US SLP discussion, it was more of that the company sponsors you or agrees to take you up on the thing that they will give you the work permit and you can work there for 2 years and then apply for PR. But in Canada, you're telling that it's a little risky thing to do. So, what
Yeah.
would be the best set if somebody hasn't got their PR yet and they're ready to get a job? The company's ready to sponsor them. Is it a little risky thing to take up?
So to be honest, see, why Canada is so famous is because they're offering so much of PRs here, right? As
Yeah.
compared to US does not have permanent residence. So people try, the best thing for them is to go to the US on a job, like, which is sponsored by a company,
Correct.
and then work there, get that experience, move on, and then get like their green card or whatever it is. But here, because you have the availability or like, your chances of getting a PR is
Higher.
better. Yeah, like
Okay.
it's better, to be honest. So if you're
Okay.
taking an LMI, it's because you're not able to go through the process of PR. But if you're willing to stick to that, in the sense, now this person that I was talking about, she came here, she's like, I'll push through these 2 years, no matter what it is. Because in that 2 years, now I'm going to be eligible to apply for a PR because I'm in this country and I have the Canadian-based experience. So it's about you choosing the battle that you want.
Okay.
And to just answer like the question that you were asking about, what do you want to tell people? When you look at people all around, and you're going to just see that everybody is flying out of India, moving to Canada or UK or Australia and all of that. Everybody is going to post only the good things, and everybody's going to tell you most of the good things. Nobody's really going to tell you the reality. One, because you don't want to worry people saying that,
Yeah.
this is what I'm really going through. And two, they don't want to really share the hardships,
Correct.
on social media or sometimes even in person too. So what I would say is like, you have to choose what's priority for you. So one simple thing is, once you come to Canada, your life, your social life, I'm not even talking about your professional life, your social life or your personal life in general is going to be completely different. You're literally being like, pulled out from your roots, and you're just like, being grounded somewhere else. Are you ready for that? Because you don't have people around. You might have family or friends, but you don't know how many of them might stick, how many of them might not. You don't even have social engagements that you can like, just go after, right after work, because you can't afford it. Affordability is the main thing. And you don't have the time for it. That is number two. You don't have close family that, you can just, even if you want to give a call right now, I know my mom is sleeping. I can't call her and just wake her up at the middle of the night and say, I want to talk to you about this. I can't take like, a ticket from Bangalore to Kerala and say, okay, I'm going home. So yeah, and so there are so many things that come into the factor. What is important for you? You have to kind of, prioritize that. And there are so many people who have come to Canada and gone back because they cannot live with this culture. They just like, I just want to attend a wedding in the weekend, just want to go and see some people. And honestly, that is something that's, so if you can kind of somehow try to figure out the real versus reality, that's going to be very helpful.
Okay, it's up to your priorities. And like you said, it's a very important thing. Most people don't talk about the hardships. I'm sure you guys had a lot of difficulty in adjusting, settling, and you may still be having that. But we are talking about all the good stuff, right? Nobody really talks about it because it's not something you always want to share. So it makes sense. It's very important to remember what we said.
Yeah, I just want to add that because I came on PR, for me, my job and how much I could be flexible with it was very easy for me. That's why when I say I'm very happy with my job, I'm absolutely, content with what I wanted, and my needs and, what I expected has been met. As compared to so many people who are coming just on their work visas or like, even their spouse visas, right? There are so many people who come. So if that's like, open work permit, or if it is closed, or if it is a student visa, or, there's a lot of like visa related anxiety that keeps coming on and off. That's also, something you have to consider.
Also, adding to that, if you're coming here on a student visa, you need to be prepared as an student SLP that you would not get to have all the fun that your other peers or friends might be having. So you might have a social circle outside, because first of all, in your class, you are going to have like a lot of cultural shock when you come in, because most of the people are from here. There is only one seat for international students in a cohort of SLPs. So in my class, I'm the only international student. All the others are Canadian. So the cultural shock is going to be there. And then when you try to make friends from your own culture, if you go outside or you meet more people, you're not going to have as much time as them, for one. Secondly, you would want to save the money because they have gotten part-time jobs and they are working, so they can make that expense, but you can't afford to do that. So you are here on a loan. So you need to be mentally prepared for those kind of things as well. So that would cut you out of a lot of social circles, and that can lead to a lot of like issues and mental health issues,
Yeah.
or a lot of things that come as a part and parcel of
Correct.
being away from your house and being here. So yeah, just come mentally prepared for like having to go through that kind of struggle, because it's
Yeah.
not going to be, oh, we are in a new country, we get to explore, we get to go to parties. It's not always like that.
Yeah. That's really important. And I think it's really comforting for other students to hear this, because a lot of people might be going through this, and to hear that, others are also going through this, it might be really comforting just to hear the voice. Yeah. Preet?
Yeah, I think no, I totally agree. I think Sheba, the way you put it across was fantastic. Just the mental aspect of it, because honestly, that's what we realized in the last 1 year, because we've had so much we time in India, like everybody's around, right? And the minute you're here, it's all that you are craving for, the me time, but you're never used to it. So for
Yeah.
you to get used to the me time and just having, honestly, for at least Sheba and me, I feel like it was easier because we had partners along with us. Like when
Mhm.
two people, we have each other if there's
Okay.
nothing else. There are stories of people we heard who are just single, like who don't know what to do, and that's even
Yeah.
harder. So we want to kind of look at a lot of aspects of the we time and the me time, because in India we're never used to. We don't understand when people say depression. I don't think we understand that concept, because
Yeah.
I don't think that was a concept there, because there's so much going on, whether it's a weekday or a weekend.
Yes.
And here you have to kind of go outside after, like, we kind of came, like, after we were all settled in after 7, 8 years of working, and now setting up an entire new friend circle, setting up a friend circle that we have to call family over the years, because that's the closest, setting up
Yeah.
an entirely new way of living, setting up your own house. Everything is a new setup, right? And like, I think when we came was after COVID. So the prices, like everybody's saying, has shot up. Vancouver and
Mm.
Toronto, I think, are the most expensive cities. It's like Mumbai and Delhi to live
Oh.
in. So that's one of the things you want to take care of, because a lot of people, like Sheba said, are going back because of the expenses too. A lot of people are going back because of the mental piece too. So it's a give and take. It's not always, like Sheba said, it's the real versus the real story. There's a lot of good things. I mean, this city is so beautiful. It's one of the most beautiful cities in the world. So I agree there's a lot of give and take, but give yourself a few years if you mentally prepared to kind of stay back. See, there's always an option of going back. There's
Yeah.
always, like, I don't think anybody who's here is always sure. I still kind of tell my husband that I'm going to give it 5 years and see if I still don't like it, or if I like it, then we'll decide. So it's never, I think that's the best part about PR, like what Sheba mentioned, that we have that opportunity of a PR, then we should use that and keep it, rather than a work permit. Or, I mean, like she said, come on a work permit and then get your PR, because then you are open to doing anything you like. I can move jobs, I can have my own business, you can do whatever
Correct.
you want, because you have that ability the same way you had in India. It doesn't feel very different then.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I think that summed up everything. Almost all of you said it. Anything else you guys want to add? You can add it here. It can be advice, it can be general comments, anything else. Yes, Abhinaya.
There's one thing I think I missed out. There's a tricky loop in the licensing process,
Mhm.
which is if for example, for UK, the HCPC, I think you can get it done from India. You can be fully licensed even before you land in UK. But at least with Castlepo, Ontario, the final leg to declare both, I think, general certificate and initial certificate, you need to show proof of residence or like either citizenship or PR or work permit. So if you don't have any of that, you cannot be fully licensed if
Okay.
from India. Even if you clear eligibility, even if you passed your exam. So I passed my exam in October. I got my results in November,
Mm.
but I got fully licensed only in January, because I landed in December, like end of
Okay.
December, and I got my license after 2 weeks, because
Okay.
I needed to show that I landed in Canada and I
And
have
you're
my
here.
PR.
Okay.
So that was a tricky loop, and I was trying to figure it out, because my workplace, wherever I was trying to apply to, then I didn't get my PR yet when it was in the process. They're like, oh, so they need my license, but my license will get approved only if I have a work permit
Yeah.
or PR. They don't want to give me a work permit. I don't have my PR yet because it's in process, and I don't have my license. So I couldn't
Okay.
land any interviews till then. Once I
Okay.
got my PR is when, like, once it got approved, they were able to talk to me. So
Okay,
it's a
okay.
very tricky loop,
Okay,
that
so
one.
one thing fits in and then everything else fits in or something like that.
Yeah, so
Okay,
you need
got
to
it.
find which one can you fit in, and I
Fit
found PR
first, yeah,
the
yeah.
best thing that I could get.
Okay, okay, okay. Okay, anything else anybody wants to add? Just generally anything.
I think we also missed talking about IELTS. In
Yeah.
general, for speech language pathology, IELTS requirements for universities are pretty high across
okay.
countries. It's you need to have like a 8 out of 9 overall
Yeah.
to get into a university. So that's like your basic requirement. So if this year application and you don't have your IELTS score matching, then they're just going to chuck you out
Course.
of their
Okay.
way. So yeah, so although IELTS is not as difficult because we have had our education in English mostly, but yeah, that's something you want to like work on. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, makes sense. Getting a score of 8 would be something which I have heard even in other SLP programs, that is a basic requirement.
And
Yeah,
higher
okay.
your IELTS, when you apply for your PR, your CRS scores increase. There's a
Oh,
comprehensive
okay.
ranking. So that's what is you're picked based on that score. And the
Okay.
more your IELTS score is, the better you get more points. So that's some way you
Okay,
can increase
okay.
your CRS as well. So for SLPs, it's quite advantageous, I
Hmm.
guess.
Okay.
I
So
would
you
also
need
suggest
IELTS
that,
for,
I'm sorry,
sorry,
yeah.
go ahead.
Aditi, yeah.
Yeah, I would also suggest that if somebody has a background in French, somewhat like they have studied French during school or during
Okay.
university or something, do give your French exams because that again, for one, increases your scores points for PR
Okay.
and also gives you more options in terms of where you can apply for a job. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, please.
No, I was saying I think you need IELTS for both your PR process as well and your license.
Oh,
You
okay.
need it for both. So then if you have it, it's valid for 2 years. So once you apply for your PR, you want to, of course, hopefully get it through within the 2 years and then get your license as soon as possible with the same IELTS. Because either some of the people have to give IELTS again to get the score, or it
Okay.
expires by the time they get through with everything and they have to
Okay.
give it again. So
I want to add something to what Preet said. Sometimes while you apply for PR, I think 5.5 to 6 is enough to apply for PR.
Okay.
But for being an SLP, you need that 8. But
Mhm.
if you do get 6, somewhere around 7 or 7.5 for your PR, and you won't get through with that for license, then you don't have to really submit, because now the application accepts if you can show that you had an English medium of education from your university,
Okay.
that's sufficient. So even if you get a 7.5 on your PR, 7 on your PR, or 6, it's okay. You can show you don't have to show IELTS for your license. You can just show your college medium language
Okay.
medium.
Okay.
I think you can process with that.
Okay.
Yeah, for me, it took me like 3 years to get my PR because of the whole COVID. So by the
Mhm.
time like I started my licensing, my PR, my IELTS had already expired.
Okay.
So I had to do this medium of medium of instruction was English.
Oh,
But
okay. Okay.
for me, the issue was that it was not just from college that they needed from college and from school. School
Okay.
meaning I studied in Kuwait, and I had nobody there that I could, fall back to. They needed
Oh,
registration numbers from when I
okay.
was 5. I didn't have any of that. It was a hard thing to kind of trace and get it, but I did get all of that, so it got
Oh,
sorted.
okay. Okay.
Yeah. So, through the application process, you wouldn't know what's the hurdle that you're going to face,
Yeah.
but it's about jumping hoops and then keeping on
Okay.
leaping
Okay.
forward.
Okay. All right. Yes.
One more thing about what Aditi was telling about if you have French added, that is a bonus. So even so basically in provinces in Canada, there are some provinces which are fully the language is official language is French. So just like that, even in BC, some of the schools that I have, the medium of instruction is French, or there are some which have French plus English. So that is why
Okay.
French. If you do
Okay.
have French, it is and it's added points for it. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. That's interesting. Okay. All right. So I think we're at the end of our discussion. I just want to say that I think most of you have already given advice. If you want to add on anything, we can add it here. But most of the general consensus which I get is like there would be a lot of things which you might go through, but if you have your final goal in mind, that's important, and you will go through the hurdles. And you have to be ready for a little bit of ups and downs also, right? So it's not always going to be like that easy flowing like cakewalk, not like that. It's going to be a little bit of a hurdle adjusting there, not just in the work wise, but also socially. So I think that's going to be a hard part. But I'm hoping that everybody could network with other people and kind of have a support system to, lay back on. Yeah. Um, yeah, I think that's the end of this discussion. And if anybody has any questions, you can email me and I'll give you the email address of any of them so you can contact them directly. And thank you so much, everybody, for watching.
Hi, thank you so much for watching the video. You've reached the end of a 2-hour long discussion. If you have any questions, comment them down below, or you can email me or message me on Instagram as well. All the best.